Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fall to Rise podcast. I know that we've been off for the past couple of weeks due to the holiday, but I definitely appreciate you all for coming back in this week. Today is probably my most personal episode to date. Today,
Yeah.
I have my guest author Taidora Nelson. This is such a personal episode for me because I've known Taidora since she was 3. So to see the wonderful woman that she's become is amazing and scary to me. So I'm very, very happy to have you on. So Taya, welcome.
Thank you. It's so funny to me because whenever I talk to you and I see you, it puts me
Mm.
back in a place of childhood. And
Yeah,
I feel like a young like girl again. I still am a young woman, but I do feel like a
mhm,
young girl.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
uh, Today we're going to discuss your book, Raina's Legacy. Did I say it right?
Rena.
Rena's Legacy. I'm sorry.
hmm
Why did you title the book Rena's Legacy?
Rena's legacy. My mother's name is Doreen, and my
Mm-hmm.
father would tell me how he would call her Rena.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, he would also always say that both my brother and I are her legacy and their legacy, basically. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought that if I'm going to discuss my childhood memoir, that I would title it Rena's Legacy, um, as a respect thing for her passing. So
Sure.
that's how the
Awesome.
title came about.
Awesome. Awesome. Speaking of your parents, there's so many things that you covered in here that I didn't know. It's so
Mhm.
weird because your parents were so different. They were polar opposites. So you kind of covered how they met. Uh, can you get into that?
Yeah.
Into how they actually met each other?
So my dad, this is the story that I was told by my dad,
Mhm,
how I'm assuming he was in his neighborhood or something and he saw her and a couple of her
mhm,
friends playing around a busted fire hydrant, and they were in
mhm,
like bikinis or whatever, and
mhm,
he looked over and he saw her, and he didn't think, during the time he didn't really think much of it because he thought they like that they were younger. But
mhm,
then one of his homeboys basically told him like, oh nah, like this is who she is, and blase
mhm,
blase. And I
mhm,
believe he spoke to her, but then they just were friends, because she was 19, I believe, when they met, and he
mhm,
was 23, and they actually were friends for a little while.
mhm,
So that's how they met. Something very simple, very casual. Um, yeah.
mhm. And what's so ironic is that considering their statuses in life or their backgrounds, it shouldn't have worked on paper.
hmm
Considering, who your father was at that time. I know
hmm
that you touched slightly in the book on who he was. Are you able to go over it without, you know, are you able to go over exactly who your
Yeah.
father was in the neighborhood back in the day?
So, um, this is so funny because this is my dad, but what I'm about to say, it just doesn't resonate to like the person that I know. But
Mhm,
basically, during the time he was selling drugs very heavily, so
mhm,
he was basically, in my book, I titled him Kingpin, meaning that he was obviously of a higher rank. So that's something that he was really involved in during the time.
mhm,
Um, so that's pretty much who he was in that neighborhood. However, at the same time, he was also a person who was very giving, and he kind of took care of his people um, in the neighborhood. So it was weird because it was some sort of like duality of him doing something like that, but then also having something very positive too about it. So that's who he
yeah.
was
Mhm.
to the
Yeah, yeah,
community.
yeah. It's so weird because your dad was that kingpin type, which I didn't believe until he took me out to his old neighborhood. Full disclosure, I'm very close with her dad. Her dad actually helped to change my life. So when I first met her dad, uh, he had a drinking problem. I had no idea who he was, and when he told me the stories, he actually took me out to his old neighborhood, and he still has that respect to this day in that neighborhood. Uh, and your mom was the exact opposite. Your mom wasn't really into the
Mm-hmm.
drug game. Your mom was, had a job, was legit. So on paper, it really shouldn't have worked, but it
Exactly.
it, it did. Um, Now, when they were together, I know that they were trying to have children, and
Mm-hmm.
your mom was told that she can't have children. Now,
Mm-hmm.
from talking to your
Yeah.
dad, it's so weird because I'm feeling I was there for a lot of Taya's life, so certain parts I may actually be filling in for her for the first time. Others she may be
Mm-hmm.
filling in for me. But when you're when your parents were dating, your mom was told that she can't have children.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and from what your dad said, they prayed for kids. And after being told that your mom could not have a child, she got pregnant with you.
With
Are you
me.
able to kind of go?
Yeah.
Yeah, with you. Yes. Are you able to go into her pregnancy or how everything went down with that?
Yes. So my dad also told me that same story, but
Mhm.
uh he didn't know any sort of medical reason
Mhm.
as to why she couldn't, just that it was a thing.
Mhm.
Um and from what I was told, they actually wanted to do this for years, but more so my mom. My mom
Mhm.
really wanted to have children. My dad said that it was a thing where it was like something that was like at the top of her priorities, I guess, of something that
Sure.
she wanted, like her goals, which I found very interesting, being that she was very young during that time.
Mhm.
Uh, younger than me. I'm 22, so
Mhm.
for someone to be that young and to want children, I thought that was very interesting. But my dad was on the same page with that.
Mhm.
So to me, I find that specific part very interesting. Um,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, he said that I kind of snuck up on them, that they did not expect to have me at the time that they did, and that they weren't really that prepared at the
Yeah.
specific time that they found out. Uh,
Mhm.
and then he describes this story where they were both laying in bed, like, I don't know what we're gonna do, but they were on the same page of still, they were like, we're gonna have this kid and we're gonna figure it out later
Yeah.
after the fact, whatever we got to do. But it was the thing,
Mhm.
like, and that feels good to know, like, that's something, like, I'm something that they both genuinely wanted at equal amounts. And something that, like, to know that I was prayed for, and that I was someone that, it makes you kind of feel like very purposeful, like I was meant to be here, because that's kind of a story, like, they couldn't have kids, they prayed on it, and then I appear, don't have any health conditions, any, complications or anything like that. Granted, as we continue this, you were their blessing. Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, no, I really do. And um, yeah, granted that he was doing what he was doing, and as we continue this interview, you'll learn even more why it was shocking that I kind of came out
Yeah.
100% okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Now,
what I know about it. So
now, was your dad still selling drugs at the time?
to my knowledge, I do not know. That's something that he did not tell me.
Okay.
Um, but because he said that they were down and out bad when they found out, it led me
Hmm.
to believe that he wasn't. Because obviously, if he was, he wouldn't really have any issues with
Okay.
taking care of me. Yeah.
And what about your mom? I've read in a book that your mom had some issues uh, right around the time that she got pregnant with you. There were
Mm-hmm.
some addiction issues going on.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
Yes.
go into that?
Yes. So I describe this scene in my book, and I try to make it very picturesque so you can kind of see it in your mind. But basically, my dad told me, I actually asked him this right before, like about a submitted my actual book about the specifics when it comes to that. So he came home one day and he smelled something that was kind of like off-putting, and he went to go try to find my mom, and what he smelled was actually I'm not sure if it was cocaine or crack cocaine, but it was that smell, and he saw it, and um basically she was using during the time. Comes to find out later on that she was pregnant with me during that time, but she didn't know. Um, it was definitely early on, so it was definitely within the first couple of weeks. So I don't really know what damage that could cause during that time, if any. But she, since they prayed for me and it was a discussion with my father that if she were to ever get pregnant, that she would never use ever again. So when she did find out that she was pregnant with me, she did quit, and she quit cold turkey. When I was, when I was born, and even when my brother was born, during that time, she wasn't using.
Yeah, yeah. As you wrote in the book, you do have a brother that's 1 year younger. It's my little man right there. uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, you do have a brother that's a year younger. To the best of your memory, what was it like living in that house? Growing up, especially when you were really, really young.
Living with my brother, my dad, and my mother.
Correct.
Okay. I just say that just because I lived in so many different places, but I actually do not recall any memories of all of us together at all. Only thing I remember is the feeling that I felt as a kid, and um, and this was more so after the fact when my dad and my mom weren't living together. So I don't have any memories of us all together. When it was her and my brother and myself, I remember just feeling afraid all the time. And I don't have any actual event that I remember that made me, understand why I felt that way. So that's pretty
Yeah.
much,
Yeah. Now I know that you didn't live in the same home because your father was on the run from the law at that time, so he
yeah.
had to actually move out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to try to protect you all and insulate you all from what was going on. So, do you know if he would routinely come by to check on you two, or if he would try to financially support you all?
So the financial, he left with my mom. The stopping by, I don't recall him stopping by ever. Because I remember having that yearning feeling. Like I was always a daddy's girl, always, 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 always. And I remember how I felt that time. I just always missed him. So I don't think he um, was stopping by. But financially, he definitely left money with my mom. That's for sure. He definitely did.
Yeah, and you later found out that that money was gone because your mom had gone back into drugs.
Yes. So um it was a discussion that they had, some sort of agreement that, obviously he'll be where he is, and she, had money that she was also holding for him, aside from money that, she could use to basically take care of herself and us, and all was gone. I don't know the transitional phase of when she wasn't using to when she started using.
Mm-hmm.
I just know that I actually was the person who told my teachers that I don't want to go home because I was genuinely scared and afraid to go home. And I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
event happened for me to be genuinely scared, but
Mm-hmm.
all of this happened around that same time, him finding
Okay.
out that all of that was gone because she, at that point, you know, me and my brother were admitted into the system after
Mm-hmm.
I teachers that I was afraid to go home. And
Okay.
then when we were admitted into the system, when my father and her started talking, and she was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how to get them back. And that's when
Mm-hmm.
he then found all the money. So
You were breaking up, so I'm
then
just going to
that
try to fill
enters a whole nother phase.
Tay, your audio was breaking up, so I'm just going to try to fill in the parts that people may not have heard. But your mom was using. She, you didn't want to go back home because you didn't know why, but you didn't want to go back home. You told teachers about this, and they admitted you into the foster care system. So you were actually taken from your mom and essentially your dad as well, and put in foster care with your brother. Am I kind of getting the gist of it?
Yes, that's 100. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's so weird is that
Are
within
you
this
hearing me well?
time, I can hear you, yes. But what's so ironic is in this time frame, this is actually when I first met you, your brother, your mom, and your dad. That was actually the only time that I've seen
Mm,
you all together. Your dad brought you over. You were maybe 3 years old, and your brother was two. And he brought you
mm-hmm.
by the house of his best friends, which is the house that you later wound up growing up in Irvington. Uh, and your dad said, "Hey,
Yeah.
man, I got two kids," and that was pretty. Your dad was just straight to the point. So I remember that we would chase you and your brother around the house.
Yes.
Uh, and again, that was the only time that I had ever met your mom. So during that time that he wasn't in your life, your dad actually lived in the same area as me. So I was around your dad uh,
Mm,
during those times. And
that's
your
so
dad did miss,
crazy.
yeah, yeah, your dad actually did miss you and your brother quite a bit, quite a bit. And he had a drinking problem, which I genuinely believe played a part. I believe that you two not being in his life played a part into why he was drinking. And then knowing that your
Mm-hmm.
mother had relapsed also played a part in him going into drinking or going into substance abuse. It's yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's this is what's going to be so ironic and so different from other interviews that I've done. Is that I'm actually going to be interviewing you and we're going to be filling each other in. So it's going to be like an interview and a conversation at the same time.
Fill it in the space.
Yeah, we're going to be filling in so
Yes,
many blanks.
that's
So
crazy.
yeah, so I know that uh, when you and your brother were right before you guys were taking the foster care. Actually, I have a picture that you sent me earlier, but right before you and your brother were taking the foster care, you guys were so close. uh, now,
Yes,
when you were taken to your when you were first put into the system, were you and your brother together?
we were together, and
Okay,
then um, shortly after we got separated.
okay. Did they ever
So
give you a
only
reason?
briefly we were together.
Oh, okay. So, and you are how old were
No,
you?
none of this was discussed.
Okay,
I believe that during this time I might have been 5. I think I was
okay,
5.
hmm okay. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so you were maybe 5 years old. Your brother was about four. Uh, do you think that your brother was separated because he has certain cognitive issues because of the autism? Do you think that that's why they separated the two of you?
Um, I truly do believe so because
Hmm.
the first home I went into, it was a couple other children there too, and I
Hmm.
don't think that they knew what it would be like to raise a child with a cognitive issue. And during
Sure.
the time, his immune system was poor too. So it wasn't just the cognitive; it was also
Hmm.
them having to, make sure that he was good with that as well. So I think he was separated for a family that, could definitely take care of him and provide everything that he needed.
Okay.
So,
Now,
mhm.
you were in this foster home by yourself. What was that like? The first home that you were placed in?
The first home. So,
Hmm.
to my knowledge, I've been in a total of three. My first home specifically, um, I believe, was the worst home
Okay.
I've ever been in.
Okay.
But now that I think about it, let me see. Because I believe my first home I wasn't in for no, my first home I was in for a year, but I couldn't
Okay.
remember the time. One, I was very young and a lot of things were happening within that home that kind of,
Okay.
disrupted my sense of time. So that that for me was an experience that I just you got to think about it. You got to think about a whole bunch of factors. I'm no longer with my family. I don't have my brother anymore. I don't know why all of this is happening specifically. And now I'm with random people. So I'm very confused. I have the feeling of just being confused and lost. And then the
Hmm.
treatment I received from those people were very, very like not even uh humane. So there was abuse in that household and just unusual situations, I guess you would say. Cruel and
What do you
unusual
mean?
situations. So that kind of did a lot.
Are you able to get into the types of things, like the types of abuse or the types of cruel or unusual situations that did occur at that home?
Yes. So first I'll get into the cruel and unusual just because that's what started first.
Mm.
Um so within this home I would be pretty much in a room that was at a lower level of the house
Mm.
and I couldn't visually see where I couldn't visually see the full room because I was always
Sure.
there at night or the lights were always off and it was dark. But
Hmm.
I later found out that my bedroom was actually in a corner of their garage.
Mm.
So I had a bed in a corner, and the mother of the home nailed a curtain around my bed so that I couldn't see anything else that was going on like in the room.
Mm.
So what I would see would be nothing. I would wake up
Mm.
and I would see nothing, and I would go to sleep and I would see nothing. And the only time it would come out obviously would be to use the restroom or to eat when they would basically feed me. But
Mm.
that really, really messed up my perception of time because I do not know how long um, I was there because I just woke up and everything would just be black, and I would go to sleep and
Mm.
everything would be black. But then that's how it started. And then it kind of turned into more of an abuse situation when her son, I would just hear things. So since I couldn't see anything because of this curtain, I would just hear them talking. Um, or their son, they had like a son who was probably like a young adult, like 18 to 20-ish range.
Mm.
And he would always say like I'm saying things to him in passing whenever he walks past me or something.
Mm.
And then the mother of this home would tell him to go in and basically put his hands on me if I were to say anything to him, even though I
And how
wasn't.
old?
I'm like 5, so I'm obviously.
Mm.
What'd you say?
No, I was asking your age, but you already said it. Go ahead. Please continue.
Yeah, so I was 5 during this time, and at random times, because I have this curtain up and I don't see anything, at random times I would be hit. So I could be sleeping and I wake up to being hit just randomly. Um, I could I don't know, it just would just be random points and random times of the day. So that created a lot of paranoia for me because I couldn't see anything and I didn't know when something would happen. Um, but things like that. Another thing that was unusual, I guess, was when I don't know what I did, but something I did upset the mother. So she put staples in my bed. And I didn't know she put staples, like, the actual staples in my bed. And she basically hit me and pushed me onto the bed with the staples, and all the staples kind of like went inside of my clothing and like, on my body. And I'm just whole time just picking things out of me. And I just found like that's something so cruel and unusual, especially to do to a child. And during the time, I don't know what's going on. So I'm just like thinking like, why are all these things happening to me? Um, but yeah, that was just the first home. There's like 2 other homes after that. So
Now, did you
uh,
were you going to school
I
around
don't
this
even
time?
know. Um, I don't believe so, and I here's why. I think it was during the summer when I first
Okay.
moved, like decided to, live there. It was the summer, and it was a point that I was going to school, and that's when I remember getting ready and then putting coats on me and driving me to school and things like that. But then shortly after I was attending school, I was removed from that home into a new home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I did read in your book that at certain times you were starved while living in this home.
Yes, that was another form of punishment. Would
Mm.
would definitely be starvation. So I would probably get like a meal like once a day, or it would be it was so hard to conceptualize time. I just know that it would be sometimes it would feel like it would be like a couple days.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and it was basically the backbone of all this unusual treatment was the mother. She was the one who initiated a lot of physical abuse and things like that.
Do you know why she felt the way that she did about you?
No, I
Mm.
honestly just feel like it was just when you do something like that, that has nothing to do with me, like at
Okay.
all. Um,
Mhm.
I was just there reaping the effects of whatever happened in her life, or as to why she is who she is. I was just
Mhm.
the thing she was taking it out on. Um,
Mhm.
I definitely think you have to be some like a really sick individual to do things like that, especially to, a 5-year-old kid.
Mhm.
So I think anyone in my place, she would have done something like that too. It
Mhm.
just so happens to be me.
Yeah. And you wound up
Yeah.
developing a relationship with the father in the home, I believe, that I read in your book.
Yes. So the father on the opposite end, his personality wasn't as brute um and harsh as she was, and he was the person that would be home all the time. So
Mhm.
I'm assuming that she would be working. So normally when I would have to use the bathroom, he would come down, ask me if I have to use the bathroom. I've seen too many types of torture. Yes, it's terrible. And
Mhm.
so he was someone that, you know, I didn't really speak to him, but when he would come around, I would feel lighter, as if everything was like, okay, like I know this is someone that would come and give me food. So he would be the one to do
Mhm.
that. And over time, he would come down just to have conversation with me, to talk with me. But
Mhm.
as I later then found out, that's pretty much a tactic that he used to try to attempt to get close to me, because there was a day that he ended up actually sexually assaulting me. And that was very, very terrible, of course. And shortly after that, I was removed from that home, but I never said anything to any sort of social worker about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but
Does
according to documents, I was there for what's that?
I was gonna ask. I'm sorry. Does your dad know about that?
I just thought you said something.
No, I was asking. Does your
No,
dad know?
so my dad doesn't know any. Yeah, my dad doesn't know anything about that. My dad actually doesn't know anything about the any sort of abuse, just because I feel that one, because I know my father and all the events that has happened in his life, I just felt that it just wouldn't be necessary to tell him something like that, because I feel that he would take it and use it and feel guilty about it. Um, so I just kind of also felt like if I told him, there's really nothing to be done about it other than just discussion. And he's also a kind of individual where I feel that he wouldn't know how to, like, he, if I were to say something like that, he wouldn't know what to really say or do about it afterwards. Um, I'm sure he would say something, but there's really nothing to be said about something like that, especially me telling my father, who is a man as well, also made me feel very uncomfortable, also added to why I didn't share with him. So there's a lot of reasons as to why he doesn't know. And maybe it will be a point where I probably would feel differently. But if he were
Mhm.
to read my book, I feel that that will also be a good way for him to kind of feel how I feel inside my mind and how I, am thinking, so he can get some sort of different perspective other than me just verbally saying it to him.
Um,
So
I
the
think
book will
that
probably be how he finds out if he ever decides to read it.
I think that if your dad does find out about it, there may be consequences, not for you though. So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
good
yeah, yeah,
thing that
most
he
definitely.
never
But
got a
I
chance to
don't.
read it. So yeah. So
Yeah, and I
all right,
don't know
let's
what he
let's
would have
let's
done with that anger either.
I do. Let's skip ahead to the next home that you went to. You were taken out of that home and you were moved to a home with a Muslim family.
Yes. So um, this family was very, very different. So the
Mhm,
households was very inclusive. I was talking
mhm,
to, they had two other children. I don't know if they were
mhm,
biological. I'm not sure, but um,
mhm,
I would go to school, I would talk with them, we would play, like it was the actual normal type of thing. And
mhm,
I learned a lot of, I guess you can say, just like Muslim ways of like living,
mhm,
I guess you could say. Overall, they were pretty good people.
mhm,
Um, I don't remember there being a male figure around in
mhm.
that home at all. So it was just the the mother. And yeah, so I did experience uh, a really bad experience, not with the mother, but with their teenage
Okay.
daughter. Um, so with the teenage daughter, she actually she actually ended up sexually abusing me also in that household. We stayed in a room together. So it was a boy and a girl, and obviously if there is two rooms, you're gonna put the two girls together. So that's why I was in the room with her. And I remember that going on for a long time. Uh, and that's actually the home that my dad ended up um, getting me out of.
Okay.
So
So
that was the only terrible thing that happened there.
that's terrible enough. You know, that I didn't even know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, I'm hearing that for the first time. So during this time, were you able to give visitation with your father? Was your father able, or your mother, were either one of them able to visit with you?
So during this time, my mother was completely absent. Um,
Mhm.
but my father did obtain visitation rights.
Okay.
So while I was in this home, every now and then I would see my father, and he would tell us how he's working to get both me and my brother back. 'Cause now what he is
Mhm.
doing is talking to the other family and getting visitation rights
Mhm.
for my brother and that family, and now dealing with
Mhm.
this family, the family that my brother was with. He stayed with that one family the
Mhm.
entirety of time spent in foster care, and I had to experience three families. So they were getting ready to
Mhm.
adopt my brother, but they
Mhm.
hadn't adopted him officially yet.
Yeah.
So my father has now visitation rights for both of us, and this was interesting just because it felt like a weird competition when it came to me going back to the Muslim family.
Mhm.
And they would always try to gauge me and be like, do you love us, you really like living with us, you want to stay here, they would say things like that
Mhm.
to me so that I hopefully I would go then and repeat that somewhere, but obviously I didn't, because like I said earlier, I was always a daddy's girl, so I wanted to be with my father. And
Mhm.
that's something I would always say, and I think that's definitely something that aided in him actually getting us back.
Yeah. Now this is a part that I'm probably gonna have to fill in for you. Uh, Around that time, your dad was actually living in the same complex that I was in. This is around the time that I started to get a lot closer with your father,
Mm,
and he would often talk about, hey man, I'm gonna get my kids back. I'm gonna get my kids back. And at that time, your dad had a very bad drinking problem, like severe. And around that time, I was a knucklehead. I was,
mhm,
acting up, cutting school, and messing with all these different girls. And I was maybe a sophomore or junior in high school, and I would give your dad money so that he can go drink,
mhm.
so that I can bring the girls to the house, as most teenage boys did. And it flew for a while. And then your dad cursed me out one day. He said, this isn't you. You're not made for this. This is not you. You're too smart for this. You don't belong here. And he pretty much threw my money back at me and told me that I better not be there the next day. I better go back to school. So of course I tried to cut school again, and he looked at me, cursed me out again, and slammed the door in my face and told me to go back to school. Uh, which is so crazy
I can
because
see
that
him
that
doing
speaks to
that.
that speaks to who he was. Because your dad, to be honest, was an alcoholic at that time, and I was giving him drinking money literally every day for
Mhm,
nothing. And he cared more about me getting an education and doing something with my life than he cared about feeding his own addiction. So he
mhm,
wound up, his drinking had gotten really, really bad at one point, and he left. I had no idea where he went. No one knew where he was because he lived in the house that you and your brother wound up living in later. That's where he lived, and he just disappeared for about a month. I had no idea what happened. He came back, looked different. He was clean. Your dad had quit drinking, and
mhm.
you know, I was
I can
skeptical
fill
as a
in
young
that
person.
gap for you.
I kind of know that gap when he went to Goodwill.
Yeah, yeah. So you know already.
Yeah, yeah. He went to Goodwill, yeah, and he when he came back, he said, "I'm going to get my kids back." And I kind of looked at him and said, "Well, they're in the
Mm,
system, you know." And as a black man or as a felon, it's hard to do anything. But he said, "I'm going to get my kids back," and he was determined. And he quit drinking to get you and your brother back. And I know that had to be
mhm,
difficult. He
mhm.
took every menial job that he could find. He did every he would always use his favorite word. I'm gonna go hustle up some money. Uh,
Yeah.
he would do any menial job just to get custody of you two. And I remember that when he went to court, he was so nervous. And I believe that he did finally get caught after being on the run. And he was talking to the judge. He said, "Your Honor, I'm a different person. I'm trying to get my children back." So everything in his life was only about you two. He didn't even care about going to jail for himself. He cared more about not having you two. Uh, so when he told me one day, he came, he was so happy, smiling, with that, that's his laugh. And he was so happy. He said, I got my kids back. I
Yes.
got my kids. I got my kids. And he was so happy. I don't think I've ever seen him that happy in my life. He said, yeah, I have this apartment in East Orange. I got my kids, hey, I'll bring them around for you to see them. And from here, you can
Mm-hmm.
probably fill it in what it was like moving back in with your dad.
Yes. Wow.
Mhm.
That I remember that being that's so crazy because the feeling of that was like immense. It was something that we all just it was, getting your kids back is such a long process, and we had visitation rights
Mhm.
for so long. So I was going on a lot of visits and not being able to
Mhm.
leave with my dad,
Mhm.
you know. And the first time I was actually able to leave with my dad, I just was just so happy. And then I was reunited with my brother.
Mhm.
So I just remember just being so happy. And then we had a new place that was very nice.
Mhm.
Uh, and it just felt like, okay, like this is good. But during the
Mhm.
time, this whole time, I didn't see my mom during those visits or anything like that. So I was
Sure.
the one asking my dad questions like, okay, so where is she? Like, you know, you have us back and we're all together, but where is she? You know?
Mhm.
And he didn't really have an answer for me. He would always say, oh, I'm gonna call somebody and see where she is or whatever.
Mhm.
And I thought that was, kind of odd. Like, how come you aren't in communication with my mom
Mhm.
at all? And why do you need to call somebody? Why can't you just call her? So
Mhm.
I didn't understand why it was like that, but it was. And then it just started to teeter into me always asking about her. But other
Mhm.
than that, it was just it was just great to be with my actual family again. And I didn't see that coming for me. I thought I was gonna have to be in and out of homes for a long time.
Yeah. So when you two first moved to East Orange, you were in a two-bedroom apartment, I believe. Um, but that
We
was
were
the
in a
first
two
home, I believe.
bedroom.
Yeah, and you and your
Mm-hmm.
brother both had your own rooms, and your dad slept in the living room, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Did he ever say why?
So he he told me that my brother is a boy and I'm a girl, and he also said that he just wanted us to have our own space and our own privacy.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, those are your rooms. Like, you will have your own individual
Mm-hmm.
rooms. During the time, I didn't want to be in a room by myself. So I would go and like sneak into my brother's room, and
Mm-hmm.
like I would go and watch movies with him and like sleep in there just because like I didn't see my brother during this whole time. So I just would want to always be around him. And even
Mm-hmm.
still, he would know this because obviously, when I would leave my room, I'm walking past the living room and he's seeing me go into my brother's room. And he still wouldn't,
Mm-hmm.
at a point I would just start to stay in there. And then he got me a whole separate bed to put inside my brother's room. And then he still
Mm-hmm.
didn't use the room that I wasn't using for himself because he said that that is your room, and I said that was your room.
Mm-hmm.
Um but he slept in the living room just because he wanted to give us our own, just something to have as our own space.
Mm-hmm. Now, around this time,
Yeah.
that when you found out what happened with your mom?
Yes. So I like I said, I was constantly asking him about her and like where she was. And I remember not wanting to be annoying, so I stopped asking him for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then one random day we were sitting watching some sort of movie, and I just looked at it and I was like, so like when is she gonna ever like come or whatever? And then he
Mm-hmm.
looked at me and he was like, all right, I'm gonna make this call. So I'm standing in front of my dad while he is sitting on the couch, and he makes a call, and he's like, "Hello, yeah, I just want to see like where Rena is. Where is Rena?" And
Uh-huh.
I remember him just being silent. And if you know my dad's not a silent person. So the whole call, he
Not
was
at
just
all.
silent. And then he just hung up. He just hung up. He didn't even say bye. He just hung up. That's
Uh-huh.
it. And then I see him, and then he does this thing. He puts his hand on his head, and he just looks at me. And then I'm like, that you can feel it in the room that like it was bad news. So then I'm
Uh-huh.
like, okay, like what happened? And then he's like, she passed away. Um, and I'm like, she passed away? And he was like, yeah, she's gone. And he was like, she died from pneumonia. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
huh. And then we just both started crying. My dad called my brother into the room and told him, but my brother during this time, he has a cognitive disability, so he
Yeah.
couldn't really understand. And also at the same time, he's younger than me, so he really has no memory of her at all.
Uh-huh.
So it was a thing of like, okay. He then went back into the room, but then my dad opened up a Bible, and I hate that I can't remember what he read to me, but he read me something, and until I went to sleep, and then he went and he put me in my personal room. Now, what I'm about to
Uh-huh.
share with you is actually very interesting because I didn't put this in the book at all.
Okay.
But I remember having a um a dream as soon as I found out that she passed, and he read me that verse and I fell asleep. I swear on everything that this was like a memory that got jogged back into my in my head of me being very little, and we lived in an apartment complex, and I'm in the living room and my mom's laying on the couch, and then I bust out the door because my dad left, and I wanted to go with him to wherever he was going. And I run
Uh-huh.
down the hallway and I'm trying to find him. I see him turn the corner, and then I don't see him anymore. So then I run
Uh-huh.
back, and I feel scared because now all the doors look the same. I'm in an apartment complex, so you know how things look
Yeah.
similar.
Uh-huh.
And um, I knock on the door. A older white woman in a robe answers, and she's like, "Oh, are you lost? I'll help you. I'm just gonna put some clothes on. Wait right here." She closes the door. I immediately go to the next door, and then I open it and I see my mom. Like I actually see her for
Uh-huh.
like the first time,
Uh-huh.
and she's just laying on the couch. And then I close the door, and then I wake up, and then I told
Uh-huh.
my dad about this, and I was like, did we ever live in an apartment complex? I don't know if you'll remember this because it's such a weird random thing, but do you recall me like ever running out trying to like find you? And he recalls this event. He recalls it, and he remembers the place it was. He remembers my mom saying to him that I ran out trying to go with him to the store because that's where he was going, and how the
Uh-huh.
neighbor said that, oh, I saw her around and she was lost. And I found that so interesting how
Uh-huh.
I was able to see that. And I definitely feel like that was given to me by my mom as some sort of memory because she knew that I didn't have a memory
Uh-huh.
of her.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That was a
yeah.
that was a crazy time for your dad. Um, we were all worried about him because your dad would still come back
Mm-hmm.
and forth to visit. He brought you guys by a couple of times. I think you guys had some kind of handshake or it was some type of name that you guys had. I think it was TPA or AP, something like that you guys had when you first came around. And I that
ATP,
yeah,
ATP.
ATP, yeah. I can't believe I
That's so
remembered that.
funny.
That's so many years ago.
I can't let
Yeah.
you remember
So
that
he
either.
came by and yeah, yeah. So he He came by, and then he told me that you guys had moved again somewhere in East Orange, and he really wanted to keep you guys in East Orange because the schools were so good. That was his only focus. His thing
Mm-hmm.
was, I don't care what I have to do, as long as they're in the best schools. And I remember that
Mm-hmm. And we were.
you were in amazing schools, the two of you, and you both did very well in school. He always used to brag about that. So,
He still does.
yeah. So I remember him coming by one day and saying, "Hey, I might have to move back to Irvington," because he was telling me that there was, I believe, mold in the apartment, and your brother, with his respiratory issues, was having issues with the mold.
Um, it was mold and lead, and to
Hmm.
kind of fill in the blank, because he, uh, that was a primal reason, but the landlord was illegally renting out a 2-story house as a 3-story house. So
Mm.
our it made sense as to why we were experiencing like more of the mold, because we were in a
Hmm.
smaller area in the um I guess you can say a part of the attic.
Hmm.
But yeah, and also when we were living there too, we had really bad experiences with like pests and
Yeah.
bed bugs. Like it was like not livable. It was I understand why he wanted to move, and my brother and I always
Yeah.
complain about it too. So he knew that he needed to get out of that space.
Yeah. So I remember I got the call one day. Hey, Phil's back. And I'm like, what? They said, yeah, man, Phil's back. Phil's he's brought his kids with him. So
Mm-hmm.
that was when you moved to Irvington, into the same complex that I lived in. And what was that like? Just moving to Irvington.
Irvington. So when I was leaving East Orange, everybody would ask me, "Where are you going?" And I'm like,
Hmm.
"I'm going to live in Irvington." And they were like, "Irvington?" And they would
Hmm.
always have this nasty look when they would say Irvington, and I'm like, "What's so bad about Irvington?" And then I get to Irvington, and then I get there, and then I start to see a lot of different things visually,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
like, okay.
yeah.
um and then the schooling. So I went um to the school. We had a meeting to put me in a certain grade. On the bright side, Armani got pushed to his correct grade, so that's
Yeah, for
something
those that
that
don't know,
was good that happened for him.
for those that don't know, Armani is Taya's brother. And so, yeah.
Yes, my bad. Armani is my younger brother.
Mhm.
um so he was put in his correct grade. I was advanced for the grade that I was supposed to be put in. So um in order for me to actually be in my correct grade, I would have to take classes over again. And my dad was like,
Mhm.
I why would she take classes over again that she already took? So he
Mhm.
was like, if anything, advance her to the next level. But to
Mhm.
advance me to the next level would mean that I would have to be entered into high school. So then it was like, well, we can't enter her into high school. So then I had to actually repeat certain classes. Um, but it was rough because it was just my dad during the time, and I
Mhm.
had to kind of pick up certain slack of the fact that we were in a one parent household
Mhm.
situation. So I would
Mhm.
have to do certain things for Armani that weren't like a sister, it was more like a guardian kind of thing.
Mhm.
So some days I would get his things ready and make sure he's good, and I would have to walk him to his school in the morning, then walk to my school, and then after that walk to his school, and then walk us home. And I would do that every day. And to me, obviously, it was just what it was. It wasn't
Yeah.
really much, but I will say it was a lot of walking. We would have to get up, like I would walk an hour. I would have to walk an hour every morning
Yeah.
as a kid just
Yeah.
to go to school. to
Yeah,
take my
I
brother to
remember that.
school and then to take myself to school and everything like that.
Hmm.
And that was rough. He didn't have a car, so then we would have to in Irvington we would have to get our groceries and like walk them back to where we were. So like your normal
Yeah.
everyday today thing was a lot more difficult for us
Hmm.
uh, once we
And
moved to
what's and
Irvington.
then the living situation was also different because there were a lot more of you living in a smaller space.
Yes. So we were in a 1 bedroom and he didn't move and it was just his own space. We moved into someone else's space. So it
Hmm.
was um his boy that he considered his brother. So I called him my uncle and
Hmm.
his mom. So I called her my grandmother. So to me,
Hmm.
that was my grandmother and that was my uncle.
Hmm.
And she lived in her own bedroom and her son that she had living with her lived in the living room. So then now we're
Hmm.
adding myself, my brother, and my dad to that equation. So that
And
means
then don't.
that my dad and my brother slept
Mhm.
on a what's up?
I'm sorry. Yeah, you have that. Then don't forget you had the two sons that were back and forth, and then me whenever I would be over there. So
That too.
yeah.
That too. That too.
Hmm.
And so I would sleep in the room of the grandmother. We would share a bed and my
Hmm.
dad and my brother would share a air mattress.
Hmm.
So that's something that we dealt with for years. So during this time, I'm how old? I believe
13.
I have to have been about within the, I was 13. I thought I was 12, but
12
it
to
was
13.
around that. Um, it's the same. It's the same. And so I was from that point on until I left at 16. So we did that for 3 years. Well, I did that for 3 years. My brother, obviously, longer.
Now, with you living in that home, I know that
So
you lived in
yeah.
a home with a lot of smokers, and pretty much everyone in the house smoked, except for you two. And I know that it was difficult
Mm,
because your brother had respiratory issues. And then one of the people that lived in the house, who was your dad's best friend, was an alcoholic. Did you ever have a fear that your dad would relapse, living in that home
hmm
with his best friend who was an alcoholic?
Um, so during the time I am 13 years old, I have no knowledge of how my dad was as an
Hmm.
alcoholic
Hmm.
because like we said earlier, he left during that time, so he wasn't around us for us to see how he was as an alcoholic. So
Hmm.
it was completely absent from my mind
Sure.
that he was an alcoholic because I just never
Hmm.
personally experienced it. So I never thought
Hmm.
about him relapsing just because I never thought about him being an alcoholic.
Yeah.
um but as I got older, I definitely thought about it. But during the time, he didn't really seem phased by it in the
Hmm.
beginning, and he never was until he ended up meeting a partner, and then that's who ended up actually. That's what gave me the fear of him relapsing. So,
Yep. I
mhm.
remember when he first met her, and he told me that they had gone on a date. And he'd had a glass of wine. Everyone in the house was afraid.
Yes,
Everyone, and I believe that you were there, and everybody was kind of mumbling to each other like, "Oh boy, oh no, oh no," because when you're an alcoholic, all that it takes is
hmm
that one sip. That's it.
you can't have
And
anything.
what'd you say?
Yeah, I was saying, I was agreeing with you. You can't have
Yeah, and he
anything.
had that one sip, and it's like he spiraled immediately. It wasn't like it was a long 3 4 week month. It's like he just spiraled back within like a week, and went back into being an alcoholic. Um, which I know
hmm
was difficult for you and your brother uh, to see for the first time.
Yes, that was very difficult because in my mind, I'm a daddy's girl. I've always wanted to be around my father. I got separated from him, and then I had visitation rights, and he got us back. So in my mind, he's the hero. He's the trying to fix things that are going on, and
Mhm.
in my kid mind. Um,
Mhm.
then as that's happening, we're in this tight, close knit space, which
Mhm.
I feel is very odd because we have an elderly woman who has her um full grown son living with her who's an alcoholic. So I'm around that. Um and then my father is now behaving like someone I don't even know.
Mhm.
He's entirely different when he's drunk, and he's just a lot more angry. He would talk to me as if I'm not even his daughter sometimes. It should be so
Mhm.
scary. So then I was
Yeah.
like, huh, like this is really bad.
Yeah.
Because now he has someone else he can drink with,
Mhm.
and now both of them are drunk, and now we're just me and Armani are always around people who are just drunk and mad and angry and just depressed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're already in an unusual situation, so then it's just so many different factors going on, and we're just
Mhm.
here.
And what's so weird is that he displayed an anger that I hadn't seen from him in years. And I remember a day
Yeah.
that I was over there, and I was so angry at him that he'd actually fallen on the floor, like fell headfirst on the floor. And it was, the usual crew, all of our friends. We were always there, and our buddy from the Bronx, Walk.
Yeah.
Walk was always the nicest guy in the room,
Hmm.
and your dad passed out, and I just walked away. I left him there because I was so mad at him. And Walk said, "Nah, man, we can't leave him here. We can't leave him here. We love him. We can't leave him here." And then I begrudgingly picked him up, and we laid him on the bed or on the couch, and I was just so mad, and I was so worried because I was worried about him as an individual because this is someone that had changed my life, uh, and I know that he had changed his life
Hmm.
for you all too. So I'd kind of made up my mind, like, okay, I have to take the kids out of the house as much as possible. So I used to try to always take you guys out of the house. Like, hey, you guys want to go to the store?
Hmm.
Hey, you guys want to go downtown? Hey, you guys. So um, it was bad, and I remember you guys used to argue, and I would usually walk in on arguments. Like you were yelling at him. You were maybe 14 years old, yelling at your dad, uh, and then he's yelling back at you. And
Yeah.
I remember that so
Yeah.
vividly, as if it was yesterday. And I remember one day we went out, we took you and your brother to go see wrestling. And we all together, your dad couldn't make it, but the whole crew, all of the guys, because there were what, 4 or 5 of us, of the guys, we were all friends. And we all looked at you all as our little cousins.
Hmm.
And we took you guys out to wrestling. And this was, I believe, your first wrestling show ever.
Yes. I remember
So
how you decided to show us that, and it was very special. I like how you did it because I don't think we knew until we got there
no, you didn't.
where we were.
And we told you that
And
we were.
I remember
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I remember being so shocked. No, you're fine. I remember being so shocked and like,
Hmm.
wow, because I believe you said, oh, we're going to take a trip downtown like we've done before.
Yeah.
So that's what I was expecting, which was fine with me. I was happy with that. And then you hand
Mhm.
me this ticket and then I read it. And then you're like, yeah, it's in there. And I'm like, I'm standing in front of the Prudential Center looking at WWE tickets. And I'm like, nah, like that's so crazy. And I still have those tickets. I wish I
Do
could
you?
go in and find it, but I have it in like one of my boxes where I save things. I saved those tickets because that's how much that meant to me during that time. Like obviously, like we discussed, that's all that stuff that we went through. And then it was
Yeah.
nice to have something that kind of just felt like special and normal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my brother and I, like we definitely that's burnt in our brains as a good memory for us.
I know that. I know that you haven't seen this picture probably ever.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. You have to send this to me. You
So
have to
that's
send this to me.
so that's you and your younger brother at your first wrestling event, and we were so happy. Just taking you guys out of there, just to kind of get you guys out of the house, and
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and so
I have my CM Punk shirt on.
yeah. I knew
No,
that you had
I
never
love
seen that, so I
that.
held on to that for you. But
I love
yeah,
that.
yeah, and we had so much fun. But
No.
unfortunately, the arguments between you and your dad. Hang on one second. I'm sorry. I think I muted you by mistake. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, but the arguments between you and your dad, they continued, and they started to get more aggressive. The arguments,
Hmm.
as you wrote in your book, you said that he slammed you against the stove and threatened to turn it on.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
Uh, when he was drunk.
Yes.
So it's
Um.
almost as, mhm.
Hmm.
It's almost as if that dark side of him that he needed to survive in the streets came back out when he was drinking.
Hmm. Definitely. I never seen that before. I've never
Hmm.
seen that side of him. And I remember before he even did that, how he looked me in my face. And I remember this so vividly. Like it's burned in my mind how he looked at me. Like I was not his daughter. The way he looked at me, I was not his daughter. Like I was not even
Hmm.
anybody he knew.
Hmm.
And that alone was enough to make me feel a kind of way. Him then putting me up over the stove, I just couldn't believe it. And I had so much, what he doesn't understand is like, I'm very much like him in the same regard of being, if I don't agree with something or if I don't like something, it will
Hmm.
be said and
Hmm.
I will have some sort of like backing to it. And I remember him threatening to like turn the stove on and I just looked at him and then I was just like as if I was like saying do it then like just do it like I don't
Hmm.
and it was a thing of me being very very tired and exhausted and me being like well if this is who you are and you're gonna do that then that will tell me everything I need to know and he didn't.
Hmm.
He put me down and then he actually attempted to he was yelling of course and then I started to scream as if like someone was like trying to kill me and
Hmm.
the neighbors came out the grandmother who was in the room she came out everyone was just silent everything was quiet and then my dad
Hmm.
just stared at me it's almost as if it shocked him back into realizing like yo like this is my daughter and
Hmm.
he looked at me and then he tried to hug me and then I pushed him. He stumbled back and then I left. I
Hmm.
just left the house. And then
Hmm.
I just started walking around the complex. And I was out there for a couple of hours because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I don't know
Hmm.
who I'm going to contact, but I do not want to go back to that because I do not know how that's going to turn out.
Hmm. Hmm.
But shortly after that, that's really what changed a lot, I will say, because he started to act different after that.
Yeah. I was actually there right after it happened. So I actually came by the house. Everything was quiet, and I had no idea why. I didn't know what had happened. All I heard is that you two had gotten into it, and he was. I'll never forget. He
Mhm.
was in the kitchen. He said, "I got to get my baby back." Drunk and all, he said, "I have to get my baby back." That was on his mind. That was his focus. Not too long after that, I believe that you moved uh, in with a friend and her
Mhm.
mom who lived into the complex.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I understood that I had to leave. Just
Mhm.
it's something I just felt in my spirit. Like I couldn't um for the amount of time I was there, it just felt so draining, so exhausting. It was just like everything I would see would just be um bad. And how they operated also just wasn't normal. It was very like my dad operates in survival instincts and, you know, street tactics, and um that's not really the greatest to raise a child on, just because I then started to notice tendencies that I had, but that I carried into living with my friend and her mom. And that was very necessary for me, because living with my father, I felt like everything had to be some sort of compromise, or that I couldn't get or obtain certain things because of his mindset. And when I started to live with my friend and her mom, we would go out to restaurants. We would go and do, you know, little like trips to, you know, the beach and stuff like that. And that was my first time ever going to the beach, first time going to restaurants, first
How old
time
were you?
doing just normal things. I was 14, 15. 14, 15. I was 14 when I first started to have these experiences, because I stayed with her for the summer. When I moved in with her, I was 16 officially.
Yeah.
So
now, within that,
when I really started to go out and do all these things, I was 16.
Now, within this time frame, you had going back and forth. Your dad was starting to wind down his drinking, and around that time, he told you the truth on what happened with your mom, on how your mom actually passed away.
Yes. So
Are you able to get into that?
So yes. So at the start of this interview, we were discussing how she was using while she was pregnant with me in her, you know, her first trimester. So during this time as a child, I did not know any of this. When he told me that she passed, he said it was from pneumonia. So I had no idea that my father, one, sold drugs, or that my mother used. So while I'm staying at Brianna's house, I would obviously come to the house to talk to my brother because he stayed there. And one of those days, my dad was there and he was really drunk, and I didn't even want to be around that. But this night, he wasn't angry or belligerent or anything like that. He was more just sad. And he sat, I remember being in my grandmother's room, he sat me down, and I remember him just crying. And that's unusual for my dad. I only ever saw my dad cry once. And that's when we were on the phone and we both found out that my mom passed. And then now this is years later, the second time I ever see him cry, and it's about my mom. Because then he starts to say, her mom actually passed from HIV that she obtained from possibly using needles, because she was addicted to drugs. Now, needles, I don't know if that is crack cocaine or if it's heroin or anything like that. Like, I have no idea the specifics of the drugs. I just know that it was heavy drugs like that. And she then got pneumonia initially because her system was deteriorating from HIV. Unfortunately, we were never able to go to a funeral. So I never actually had a proper departure, and she wasn't buried. So there's no place I can go either. Her ashes, I believe, are with her family that she didn't even really talk to, and I have no communications to her family at all. So I have nothing. And it was just odd because it's as if I just never knew her and I never had any sort of connection to her, and then no actual departure. So that's kind of I just felt like, damn, like I felt like that was just, to be honest, like, excuse my French, that was just fucked up. Like, it was just terrible. Like, I've been through all this in my life, and I'm now really wanting to know my mom, and she's just gone. Like,
Mhm.
it was just terrible. And then it makes me think that for a while I felt pretty guilty. I felt guilty because I was the one who told the school that I didn't want to go home, and I was the reason as to why me and my brother were admitted into foster care. And I wondered if she just spiraled after that. But
Mhm.
honestly, now I know I don't put anything on myself, because obviously that has nothing to do with me. I was a child and she had
Mhm.
her issues, and that's how she decided to cope with things. But it just made me
Mhm.
feel bad because I felt like the last days of her life she didn't spend with us. And um, I know that when you have HIV, the process of passing is very painful. And the fact that she was alone and didn't have my brother and my father, I just think, like, I always think about her last days.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it was so crazy because you wound up moving back in with your friends not too long after that, and right around that time is when your dad began to get clean. He went cold turkey,
Hmm.
quit drinking. Wasn't really fun to be around when he quit drinking, but he quit drinking and he said,
No.
"Man, I gotta get." He kept saying, "I gotta get my baby back." He just kept saying that. Have to get my baby back, and you know, he quit, and which had to be difficult because you're in the house with your best friend that is an alcoholic that is still drinking, as well as other people that are coming
Who's
by
an
the house.
alcoholic?
Yeah, and then you're there with other people in the house that are still
Hmm.
drinking, coming by, bringing drinks, and he quit. And I just looked at him and said, "Like you quit?" He said, "Yeah, I'm done." He said, "I just remember why I quit the first time, and I'm clean." And he's been clean ever since. And it's been what, 6 or 7 years now? Probably long. No, been
Hmm.
longer than that. Been
Yes.
closer to 10. Been closer to 10. He's been clean.
And
Uh,
he did it all by himself.
he did. He did. No help, by himself. Uh, and around this time, this is when you moved in with your buddy across the street. Uh, Now, from the outside, it seemed like everything was going great. But as I read your book,
Hmm.
there were different things going on that weren't really the best.
Hmm.
Mhm. Can you
No,
can you go
not
in,
at
can
all.
you go into that?
With that, um, I experienced different things that I needed to experience that kind of opened my mind.
Hmm.
So that was just having those normal, experiences, like going to the beach, going to restaurants and stuff like
Hmm.
that, that was just considered normal. I was having those experiences. But this her daughter ended up moving because she had a school where she lived at the school. So it then turned to me living with just her mom, which was a very different dynamic than when we were all three of us together.
Hmm.
And her mom had a lot of her own personal issues. And she's an individual that when she's angry, she takes it out on everyone around her.
Hmm.
So it was just weird because at this point I'm a teenager, so I am 16.
Hmm.
And now I'm coming into, young preteen, being a woman and stuff like that. So it was nice to be around another woman. But what I will say is that um, she didn't necessarily treat me as if I was like her own. And that's not something that I necessarily wanted
Hmm.
at all. She didn't have to treat me like her own. But because of that, um, it just was a weird feeling because it always felt like it was her daughter, and then I'm just other.
Hmm.
So when her daughter would come for breaks, she would um, give her a lot of things, and it was as if I was getting
Hmm.
scraps. if that makes sense. So
mm,
even when it came to
mm,
like ordering food and like stuff like that, it would be I could only get these certain things, but her daughter can get anything she wants. Or
mm,
when it came to Christmas, she would get me some things, but then she would give her daughter like 300 something, 400, whatever, certain amounts of money, and then have me go with her, but then don't give me anything. And granted, she can do whatever she wants with her own daughter, but she made it apparent that there was a separation. So then it just made me feel weird as a kid, being like, well, obviously I'm not in my house and I'm living with you, but um I'm just like I don't know, I just felt less than. It was like I'm a second class person living with you guys. And then when she
mm,
would get very angry, she would want me to do things for her, like run errands for her, do specific things for her to kind of like make up for it. So it was kind of weird
mm.
living with them.
And it's probably harkens back to when you were in foster care, when you were kind of like a third class citizen. So
Mm-hmm.
you were going through it again while going through that. But things, as they do, tend to work out for the best. This entire time, you were still doing well in school, wound up getting a full scholarship, a full 4 year scholarship to
Mm-hmm.
college. Uh, but at the same time,
Yes.
there was something I read in this book that was going on that I had no idea about. You had begun to cut yourself around this time.
Yes. Yes. I actually started um during the alcoholism phase where my dad, relapsed. That's where it really started because
Mm,
I felt like everything outside of me was out of my control. But I was like, okay, my father is the only good thing out of this. So then once my
mm,
dad started to then become other people, like what other people were doing to me, then it really felt
mm,
like I am alone, like I am by myself in this. And I felt like everybody was against me. And then that sort of and then it carried on to when I started to live with the mother, and it just always felt like I was just I started to develop this like self not self hate but self worthlessness, as if like I
mm,
didn't really have any true like value and things like that. And it's so strange because now I don't even think in that same mindset at all. But during the
mm,
time, I just didn't even understand why I was doing it. I didn't even know why I
mm,
was doing it. I just would do it and
mm,
just have it be done. I honestly would forget that I even did it too. It was just something that I just wanted to express. It felt like I couldn't express anything, that I couldn't
mm,
do anything about my situation. So it was something of me, I guess, getting it out.
mm,
Um, and it's tragic because a lot of people in the Black community experience this, but nobody ever wants to talk about it because it's not a Black thing to do.
mm,
Always we
mm,
hear that, like, oh, you're one of them little white emo kids. And
mm,
I'm like, nah, I'm just going through some things.
mm, mm,
So it was something I really kept to myself for that reason. And it was something I was definitely not going to tell my dad, especially if he was an alcoholic. Why would I say that? That would just be another
mm,
argument. So it was something I kept to myself.
mm, mm. So fortunately, you did stop that. You did stop
Yes.
the cutting yourself. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yes, that was huge. Um, so after this, you move on to greener pastures. I get the call from your dad. My baby's going to college, and
Yeah.
you would. I remember that you had wanted to go to college for, I believe, anthropology initially because of your favorite show, which I don't know if you remember what that show
Mm-hmm.
was. What was that show?
Bones.
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 Yes. So you were going to study
Bones.
anthropology, and then you wound up going to Roman University for a 4 year scholarship, and you began to
Mm-hmm.
start your love life, which is this is going to be the part that I'm going to hate to hear about, but because I still look at you as the little cousin, but yeah, in the fourth chapter in your book,
Yeah.
the chapter is titled "Him." I'm just gonna let you flow with this chapter
Yes.
of your life. Oh boy.
You said that's all you. Him.
Yeah.
Let me go. I believe that's chapter 5.
Yeah.
Chapter 5 is
Mhm.
him. It's so crazy because, like you said earlier, how I had my first little boyfriend in high school. All of that would just basically be them walking me home.
Mhm.
Just little kid stuff. But this, I would say, was my first actual, like, genuine, real experience
Mhm.
with having someone like care for me, and I was involved with their family and everything. So this chapter is starts off with a letter.
Mhm.
So I started off with talking about how I felt with this individual, how things, what I learned,
Mhm.
and basically what I take from it, and how I understand that it was just a pivotal point for me to just understand myself better, understand
Mhm.
certain intentions that I want to set with people in the future.
Mhm.
Um, it was just, I realized it was a reason why it didn't work out, and it was very necessary for it to happen,
Mhm.
I will say. But as the chapter continues, it's poems and excerpts and art that I've made from the feelings and experiences I had with this individual that kind of show the roller coaster of, like, oh, I really hate all these things that are happening that this person is doing to me. Then also poems about what I've learned from those experiences. So
Yeah. Yeah.
to cut it short, at the end, I ended off with saying to my future, because now from this experience, I know what I want from the next person, and I know what I need them to have. So it's
Mhm.
short, but it's very potent information in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna recommend everyone buys the book to read that section. Definitely, because you really go into just becoming a woman for the first time, into dating for the first time. You're actually still in college now. You're due to graduate soon, which I'm so proud of, and
Yes,
I better get a ticket to your graduation too.
thank you.
Um, you've
Yes,
got the activism.
you definitely will.
You've overcome just so much
Hmm.
in your life. You've had every reason in the world to quit, literally every reason, and
Hmm.
you didn't. And maybe that comes from your family because, again, your dad had every reason to quit and he didn't. Your brother with his cognitive issues has every reason to quit
Exactly.
and he hasn't. What advice would you give to someone that's going through what you're going through, whether it be the foster care system, whether it be the sexual assaults, the living with alcoholism, the depression, the feeling of worthlessness? What advice would you give?
I love this question. I love it. Um, I would give, here's what I would say. I would definitely say that you, anything that is not in your control is
Mhm.
happening for you.
Mhm.
And it's easy to look at these situations and stay within the pain that it causes you. But
Mhm.
if you can operate outside of emotion and kind of look
Mhm.
at things from an outside perspective, it makes it easier to get through the situation. But to
Mhm.
also be kind and mindful to your emotions, to understanding them, because you don't want to ignore them. You don't want
Mhm.
to put them to the side, because then you're going to operate still an emotion by ignoring them. So it's
Mhm.
basically about finding the balance of things, um, of
Mhm.
being conscious, but also of knowing how to get through it. So
Mhm.
also know that it's a moment. It's just a moment in your life. It feels like
Mhm.
everything because it's your present.
Mhm.
But at some point it will be a past thing, and it's all up to your mentality. If you try your very best to take the situation and not ignore it and learn from it and get past it, then you are properly
Mhm.
dealing with it. And it will be easier for you to attract better things to come to you, because I feel that throughout this situation, that's what I tried to do. And then I started to attract friends and
Mhm.
other people that ended up actually helping me through these situations.
Yeah.
So it's all your mind, it's all your mentality, it's all about how you operate based upon the things that are happening to you. It's
Yeah.
very, very, very important that you stay, you know, you stay positive. You don't allow these events to control you, you know.
Um,
So
wow. Wise
that's
words. Wise.
that's the best advice I could give. Yeah.
Such wise words.
Thank you.
One of the last things that I'm going to go into with your book is this newfound activism. With the start of 2020, with
Yes.
the murders of George Floyd. This is something that's so new, and I really applaud you and members of your generation, even though I'm only a few years older. But you have this newfound activism
Hmm.
that I really applaud. I applaud you for having the toughness to do it. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, it's just amazing. I don't want to give away too much because I want people to buy the book because there's so much in this book that I have not gone over because if I did, we'd be on here for 5 hours. Uh, there were a lot of things that I learned about some of
Yes.
the first, which was hard for me to read. It was very difficult for me to read some of this. But before we open it up to Q&A, I'm going to leave you, Taya, with something. The last time that I saw you, we took your brother
Okay.
out. You and your brother, we went out to eat, and I let you drive a car for the first time. Do you remember that? Yes,
Yeah.
you almost crashed my car in the parking lot. But we went out to eat,
Yeah.
and I saw you and your brother's love, and I just had to capture it in a picture, and I had forgotten that I had. Actually, let me capture two things. I had forgotten that I had it, so I figured that I'd share that with you from the buffet the last time that we actually saw each other.
Oh my gosh.
I see you with your Black Lives
Wow.
Matters.
He
Yeah,
looks so cool.
yeah.
I was on
So
it then. Please,
yeah,
you have to send
yeah,
me all of these pictures.
okay. And
Wow.
we also have, which is great news. Your brother did eventually wind up graduating from high school with honors. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, so
Yes.
happy right
He's
there.
very
He's
intelligent.
super. Your brother's one of the smartest people that I've ever met in my life. I would never challenge him in a math contest because I would
Yes.
definitely lose. Uh,
Yes. And all history things
yeah,
too.
yeah. So I'm gonna get ready to open it up for the Q&A, but there's one last thing that I want to ask you about. Uh, in your book, you write
Okay.
letters to people. You write letters to your mom.
Hmm.
You write letters to yourself. You write a letter to your brother. You even write a letter to the judge that allowed your father to officially adopt you. Why is there no letter to your father?
Hmm. You aren't the first person to ask me this. So there is no letter to my dad because I truly, during this time, did not feel inclined to write one to him.
Hmm.
And here's why. I intend on writing another book. I intend on writing
Okay.
another book, but I feel that my dad is a very complex individual.
Yeah.
And I want to dedicate more than a letter to him. And
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure that out right now. Um,
Yeah.
and it's so crazy because I fully cannot 100% answer that question, but I don't do anything I don't feel naturally inclined to do.
Sure.
And I just didn't feel like a letter, also didn't feel like a letter would do him enough justice. I definitely
Mhm.
feel like in my future, when I do write another book, I kind of want to dedicate a chapter to him. I have a lot of unanswered questions. So when I do something, hopefully a lot more of those questions will be answered for me. Um,
Okay.
so I can have just a better understanding. But Yes, that's pending. That's a pending thing.
Well, I mean, as I think we've spoken about earlier, I've spoken to your dad. He's
Yes.
actually going to come on, and your dad's going to have 2 episodes of his own, which I don't know how I pulled that off, but your dad's definitely going to be on.
I don't either because
I don't know. I guess because we're all like family, but your dad's going to have 2 of his own episodes, and I'm also going to write a book on his life. Uh, you know, it's so weird. We often talk about how people have issues. We talk about addiction. We talk about people's problems, but I think that you kind of highlighted that with all of the things that your father did, with all of the things that you all had gone through, you highlighted how much he loved you guys, how much he sacrificed
hmm
for you guys, because he could have gone back to selling drugs easily. He used to tell me all the time that people were offering
exactly.
him. He'd say, "Hey, man, this person offered me a key right now for free, and I can go back in the game, and we won't have to struggle. We won't have to be on assistance. I can go buy a house right now." He said, "But
Exactly.
I'm not risking my kids. Yeah, man, I'd
hmm
love to drink, but I'm not losing my kids." So I think that your dad, even flawed, is an example of a father that's willing to do anything for his children. So
Exactly.
yeah,
He
yeah,
definitely is.
yeah, yeah.
He definitely is. I
Hmm.
also wrote a lot of poetry about my dad, which is why I also felt that I didn't necessarily need to write a letter because I have a
Hmm.
few poems about him
Hmm.
that I definitely feel are enough, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
for right now.
Well, if someone needs to get those
Yeah.
poems, they need to buy your book, which is
Yes,
called
Rena's Legacy.
Rena's Legacy. They can buy it on Amazon, Amazon.com. Please buy the book. I bought the book the day it came out. Uh,
Yes, I love that.
serious, seriously, please, please, please support a young artist. You also have art. You're also a painter. So you do have a website. Please put it
Yes,
in the
I
chat because it
am.
is very long. I don't know if you were able to put it in the chat. If not, I'm gonna
I got
try.
it.
Yeah, because that is super
I
long.
will.
But you're a painter. You've done quite a bit
I
of
got
art.
it.
Yeah, and the website is BTA
I'm putting it in the chat
TALEYAV
right now.
.com. Yeah, I'm just reading it for the people that are watching when I do the replay of this. So that's VTA
hmm
TALEYAV.com. Uh, we can also, I'd also like people to try to donate because you're going to try to get this second book off the ground. So, please donate
Yes.
to your Cash App, which is under Taidora Nelson. So $ TAIDORA Nelson NELSON. I'll definitely be donating to it myself so that we can get this book off the ground as well as some of your art. You
Thank
know,
you.
we really need people to expand and we need people like you. This is actually one of your paintings that you did, right? This is yours, right?
Hold on. Let
Yeah.
me go back. Yes,
Mhm.
that's one of my
Yeah.
that's one of my paintings that I've done. I
Mhm.
actually have a lot more detailed portraits that I've been getting into recently. That's pretty old.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you have your newer things. They please go to the website.
hmm
I'm gonna buy a couple of paintings from Taya. Uh, please forward this book because there's a lot of things that I didn't even get into with this one. Believe me. Uh, please, please, please support my little cousin. Taya. So with that, uh,
Thank you.
anytime. With that, we're gonna open it up to questions or comments. Hang on, I have to
I have
scroll
a
through
question.
screens. But Jalen, yes,
Hey, how are you doing?
Sure.
yeah, yeah.
Well, number one is very,
I'm
very.
good. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. I want to say you're truly inspiring. Your story. I know I was coming in and out, so I do want to apologize. I was trying to eat dinner, but I was trying to be very respectful as I
Mhm.
was eating. But when did you? when did you actually publish this book, and how did you go about doing it?
Awesome. First, thank you. Thank you very much. But I actually finished it a couple months ago. If I could actually do the dates or the month. It's been live for 2 months now. So it's relatively new. It's been available for 2 months, and I went through Amazon. So Amazon has a thing where you can publish yourself. So I did self-publishing for this book. And Kindle, they have a Kindle Direct publishing site that allows anyone to write their own book. You just have to go through their process where they will go through and check everything and make sure that it follows their guidelines and things like that. You got to make sure that it's copywritten so that you own all of your all of your things too. You can publish something that isn't copywritten. It just means that people are free to use it and they don't have to compensate you. But I definitely wanted to make sure it was copywritten, but it was relatively easy. It took me, once I completed my manuscript, it took them 3 days to make it live on their site. So that was my process for that.
Jalen, does that answer your question?
Thank you for your question.
You're welcome. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a few messages that were texted to me, but does anyone else have any questions before I get to those? Just looking. Okay. All right. One question that was sent to me was, have you ever tried therapy to help yourself?
So crazy. So a lot of my friends have suggested therapy, and I have a couple friends who are in therapy, and it's something that I will do. Mm-hmm. However, what I have been doing, I'm very spiritual as a person. So I no longer identify with a specific branch, but I was raised Christian by my father, and he isn't a specific branch himself. But that kind of allowed me to dive deep into spirituality. So what I do is I meditate. I also write out my emotions. I talk to the source, which is God. I have my own personal connection with that. So I consistently think and filter my emotions and why I even operate in the way that I do, which are certain techniques that are used. But I definitely feel that with therapy, that would really, really help me get through a lot of things. But I will say, I feel pretty, I wouldn't say okay. I don't feel like that would do it justice, but I feel that throughout all of this, I am in a good space still. But I feel that even in a good space, I should still get therapy.
Yes, I definitely advocate. As I've done on pretty much every episode, I believe that therapy is very important, especially for members of the Black community, because we go through just so much trauma just being Black. So, along with the other things. So
Literally.
I definitely advocate therapy. Another question that was sent to me: what advice would you give your younger self while you were going through these things in life?
Good question. My younger self kind of didn't see a future. So I didn't know what that would be like. Honestly, I feel that I would tell my younger self to just be more patient, because I wanted a lot of things to change immediately. If I was a lot more patient and a lot more accepting, my process would have been easier for me. But that's the only thing I would give myself. The only advice I would give myself is just to be patient with things and just process things a little bit better rather than just focusing on the effects. I would have gotten through it a little bit better.
Mm, okay. There's one question that I actually have myself. Reading through your book, there's a section about a friend of yours that committed suicide.
Hmm.
A very good friend of yours that
Yes.
committed suicide. Does that still bother you, and how do you cope with it?
So, it does bother me because I think about it from time to time. I also had another friend who passed last month. Um, yeah, I had another friend who passed last month, so it's just it definitely does bother me, just sudden death like that to young people. How I cope with it though is basically still having them alive in my memory.
Mm-hmm.
And um this person I actually worked with, and I just remember how selfless and how caring he was. So I want to attribute that to myself. And that's kind of how I cope with it, like taking the lessons that I learned from him and just keeping it in my everyday life. And I pretty much feel okay about it just because I don't feel like he's fully gone
Okay,
because of that.
got it, got it. Now we have a question that someone sent in through the chat. Hang on one second, I'll pull it up. This is from Queen Diva. Are you affiliated with any organizations where you speak to other youth who may have experienced what you did, or to prevent them from experiencing it?
No, but I do want to get into it. I just started to fully immerse myself into activism. And upon completing this book, I've been trying to reach out to certain, groups that have these discussions and have programs where they talk to young Black kids about things like this. So I'm very open to very nice. Thank you. I'm very open to learning more about certain organizations that I could possibly be a part of. That's my next big step. This was a goal I wanted to accomplish. I accomplished this goal. Now it's you can create your own organization. Yes, that would be amazing.
Queen
That
Diva's
would
the one to
be.
talk to. She handles that stuff.
I would love to do that.
She handles creating businesses and uh,
Okay. All right. I would love
I-
to get your contact information.
yeah. Up, see, she already put I can assist.
I can assist. Thank
She
you,
already
Queen
sent you the
Diva.
number.
Oh, hold on. Let me take that number down. I'm gonna screenshot
You,
that.
I'll send it to you.
You'll
I was gonna say I'll just send it to
send
you. I
it
have it.
to
Yeah, I
me.
said I gotta send you so much stuff now. This is crazy.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, that's
You do.
yeah. I have to send you a million different things now. But does anyone else have any questions, comments? Oh, Larita, have your hand up.
Hi. One, I just want to commend you for being able to get through what you've gone through and to be able to come out on the other side in a positive light, um, and the survival aspect of it all. My question to you is, have you ever, I don't know if it's been long enough for you to possibly confront your abusers, or if you would be able to. Do you think you ever would if it was ever at all possible?
I love that question. Thank you. Um, that's interesting because when I was younger, I definitely had some sort of anger where I kind of wanted to in some sort of way. I just didn't know how to go about it. But now, since I honestly truly feel that I am 100% over that experience, I no longer feel the need to even confront them, just because I feel that it wouldn't do anything more for me personally. And I also feel that I don't necessarily know how I would do that, like how I would confront them or what I would say. Also, I was a child, so these people I can't even remember, and I'm sure they are on documentation, obviously, but I don't have that documentation. So another part of me accepted the fact that I won't see them again. So I kind of let go of that idea of ever um, confronting them. And for that reason, I just remained absent-minded of it. And I felt like, okay, and I accepted that.
I do get that. I know with a lot of the laws changing recently, um, because it is your story and your information, like I'm so happy that you are to the point where you don't need to confront them at all. That's a huge thing. Like I'm a survivor myself, so I'm not able to confront two of three of my abusers or to have them pay for it specifically. Would you at all think you would pursue um, pressing, having them pay for what they did per se? Because I know, like I said, with the laws changing, or would you
Mm.
just let it go by the wayside? Because I do understand that, you know, it did happen when you were a child and it can dredge up those traumas to cause harm to you. But if it didn't, and you are strong enough to
Mm.
that point where, would you at all pursue legally going after them to have them pay for what they did? So for one, they could never, if they're ever at all in a position to hurt another child, keep them from doing so, but just in overall getting them to pay for what it is that they did to you. I don't know if that's too long of a question, but
No, that's a great question actually, and I'm sorry to hear that we've also shared similar experiences. Um, I truly would love to do that in my future. As of right now, I feel that I have so many things that are how would I describe it? You know, in everyday life, you have a lot of things that are priority. So I feel that right now I have a lot of priority things that I have to handle before I would get into that, because what that would entail, it would mean that I would have to go through a lot of loops to even figure out who these people are. I definitely, if I were given the actual opportunity to make them, um, you know, pay for what they've done to me and possibly other children, I will definitely do that, because I don't know if other people would have the, I guess the, not probably the ability to do it, but they would probably feel like I don't even want to dive into that and put myself back in that sort of experience. And I feel like I would be the perfect person to actually take it there with them. I don't know if anyone else would be able to do it. So I would want to do it for myself and for other people and for future people possibly. It would just, I would just have to go through a lot of loops to even get to that point to do that. But I would definitely do it, to answer your question. Yes.
okay.
Thank you. We have another question from Nosa.
Thank you.
Uh, let's see. Did any of your past trauma trickle down to any of your current relationships, with examples such as trust issues?
Mm, yes. So I actually I actually feel that whenever I talk to anyone, whether it's just um even someone I work with, I always feel that people have ulterior motives. just because of all of the events that took place in my life. I feel a lot of people had ulterior motives, or um, just did things that were just terrible. So I just think sometimes the worst of people first, which is um, not the greatest thing to do, but at the same time, there should be a proper balance. You should know that people are capable of anything, but don't necessarily think negatively first. So it definitely has trickled down. I struggle with trusting. I struggle with connecting. Um, because when you think about it, I've been floating majority of the time, just being around a lot of different things. So I myself have had trouble connecting to my own father, and then I never had the ability to connect with my mom. So sometimes that feeling of connection to other people is so foreign to me. I don't know how to go about it or what to do. So my immediate reaction would be to distance myself or to reject it. So that's something that I'm working on now. But I understand that about myself. So I'm actively working on the things that have trickled down.
Oh, okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? Hang on. Checking the screens. All right, hang on one second. Queen Diva has a question. After what you've been going through, I understand why you would have trust issues. Oh, hopefully in time, you will heal.
Thank you. Yes. I feel everyone should have not trust issues, but a balance of understanding that like you can't get trust should just be earned, as I'll say.
Yeah, yeah,
Something earned, but something that, yeah.
definitely, definitely. All right. It doesn't look like anyone has any questions. Tell you, if people wanted to reach out to you or to order or send you money on your Cash App or just to check in with you, is there a way that people can contact you, whether it be a social media, a website? Uh, is there any way that people can do that?
Yes. I Yes, so I have my Instagram platform, which is what I use to converse and talk to almost almost like my entire clientele. If you don't have the Instagram platform, I also have my email, and I can put it in
Okay.
the chat actually.
Yeah.
So I'll
And
put
what is your
my
what is it?
Instagram.
So can you say it because there may be people that
So my
may be
Instagram
watching?
is my
Mhm.
Okay, so my Instagram is V Tatalea V, and it's spelled VTATALEYAV. Um, Usually I'm going to be the only thing that will pop up for that. That is my
Yeah.
Instagram account, and my um, email account is the same thing. So it is
Mhm.
VTATALEYAV at gmail.com. So
Okay.
those are my forms of contact.
Okay. All right. Hopefully everyone does reach out. Hopefully people do buy this book, which is very important. It was a must read. Again, I've been around Tia since she was 3, and I learned so many new things about her in the beginning of this book. Uh, please buy her art. I'm going to buy a couple of pieces, and feel free to just donate money to her Cash App.
Thank
She's
you.
developing a brand, so please do so. Larita, you had a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to, not so much a question, but I just want you to know that at such a young age, you are quite stronger than most. I can say, speaking for myself at your age, I don't think I was as strong as I was. I wasn't ready to tell my story. Um, Actually, let me show myself. Hey,
Hey.
um, being actually my daughter's my daughter's
Hi.
hi. My daughter's actually my oldest daughter's about a year older than you, so I can't even imagine her going through even a portion or one of the things that you went through, and being able to stand strong and stand firm and to be able to share your story, and just know that you sharing your story and you putting it out there is definitely helping someone else. It's helping someone else know that they are not the only ones going through it. They're not the only ones who have been through it. And because you've come out on the other side in a positive way, to be able to be willing to help the next person, that they can do so as well, and that it's not over for them. And I just want you to know that I will be reaching out to you via social media. So if ever you'd like to um, just talk and just have someone to listen, I'm always available. Like, you can ask Jimmy, or ask James rather, that I'm one to always be willing to help anyone. So I just want to encourage you to keep moving forward, to know that people are watching in a positive light, and that you should definitely be proud of yourself. So I do commend you.
Thank you so
You're very
much.
welcome.
Like, that means a lot to me. It really does mean a lot to me. um I just didn't even expect to even be sitting here having this conversation with you. And so that in itself, just even doing that is means a lot to me. So I appreciate that. I definitely look forward to talking to you, and I would definitely be contacting you. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
You're very welcome.
Definitely, definitely. Uh, Valerie, is your hand still up, or is it from the last question?
That's from the last question.
Last question. All
Yeah.
right. So once again, thanks everybody for coming out. Thank you, Taya, for coming on. I was probably more nervous
Thank
than you were
you.
to have you on here, uh, because
Really?
super. I'm still super protective of you. Larita actually had to tell me that on Monday. Someone made a comment and said she's cute, and apparently I looked like I was going to kill him, and I didn't even notice that I did it. So I'm still very protective of you, very protective of the family. You know, we've just had such a great relationship just growing up. We've grown together. We really have. You know,
We
we
have.
we've known each other from young to, from when I was in high school and you were a young child to when you were in high school. You know, to have known each other that time, I still,
Yeah.
I'm still happy. Yeah, I still love the fact that I still have that great relationship with you, your dad, your brother. Like I said, I spoke to your dad and your brother yesterday. We're going to get your dad on, possibly your brother one day.
Hmm.
We'll see. We'll see how your brother feels about coming on.
Armani will
Uh,
definitely, he will definitely want to do it, I will say, for
well, I know
sure.
that he would, and he will put me to shame. So I have to think about when I
Yeah.
wanted to put him on there. But yeah, I definitely appreciate you for coming on. I could not be prouder of you. Yeah, I really could not be proud. I've always known that there
Thank
were going to be
you.
big things coming from you. I didn't know this big, and I think that you've only reached the tip of the iceberg for where you're going. Um, to be honest with you, like I already see that I'm going to one day look ahead and I'm going to see you just famous on top of the world helping people. I already see it. And I'm going to be one of those guys bragging about, hey, I remember when Taya was 3 years old getting chased around the house and
Agreed.
eating
Thank you. Thank
cheeseburgers,
you.
and you know, I was going to Bruno's and getting our pizza, or us watching wrestling on Mondays. So I'm going to be able to
Yeah.
laugh and joke about that. So again, I could not be prouder of you. Uh, and as Larita said, as always know that many others will follow in your steps, and simply, if nothing more, say thank you. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, Taya, thanks again. Uh, Thanks again for those that are tuning in. Uh,
Thank you.
we've been off for the past couple of weeks. I'm happy to be back. We're back in the swing of things. For those of you that are new uh, to my show, we've been at this for 20 weeks now. We've done quite a few episodes. If you've never seen them before, you can feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Fall to Rise, which is the Fall to Rise podcast YouTube channel. I'm actually going to put it in the chat. Please like and subscribe. We have a lot of new things that are coming out. We have a lot of newer episodes that are going to be coming. Uh, Also, please subscribe to my other podcast, which is the Extreme Truth podcast. It's not quite like this one. A few more four-letter words on that one, but it's just as real. We have just as much fun. have some time to kill on a Monday, come on out, come hang out with us. All of our contact and social media information is under the Extreme Truth Instagram page, which is the letter X TREME Truth Podcast Network, and that's on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, pretty much all forms of social media. We're on there, and I know that we do have a few other people on here that have their own shows. I know that Destiny and Queen Diva, they have their show, the Unique Expression Show, which comes every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Correct? I don't know if they're still on.
Great job. Thank
you. Yes. So every Wednesday at 7, and they tackle a lot of different topics, but from a woman's perspective. It's a great show. I've been on in a couple of weeks, but definitely a great show. We have Destiny. She does her karaoke, online karaoke. So if you want to come on, whether you can sing or not, you can check out the DJ Destiny's karaoke page. I'm trying to make sure that I plug everybody. And we have Larita and Jalen. They both have books out. I'm trying to see if I still have them. I'm pretty sure that I do. But please feel free to buy them.
I need to get
their books are amazing. Yes. All right. This one is Jalen's book, Breakthrough. I'm sorry. You can find it on Amazon. It's called Breakthrough with Jalen Nicola. And then there's another one with Larita, Breakthrough. I'm trying to find their books. I have it here. I know that much. But we definitely have their books. I have to find it. But please go. Oh, here it is. Go on Amazon, find Breakthrough with Larita Phelps and with Jalen Nicola. I was fortunate to have them on quite a few episodes with me. We did an episode on depression, molestation, surviving suicide, homelessness. We've done a lot. I've done a lot of work with them, and I'm happy to call them friends now. We've gotten to work together on quite a few projects. So please like and subscribe, buy their books, support everybody. This is really how we grow. This is how we kind of grow bigger than the machine, and how we get to think our own thoughts, and by supporting each other and not necessarily supporting what we're told to support. By us listening to these stories, we can now expand. We can get more of these stories out. We can get more help to the people that need them. So please like and subscribe and purchase for everyone that I've mentioned. So that about wraps it up. So for myself, I'm your host, James Brown, and everyone here at the Florida Rise Podcast. Thank you.